Across the Pacific in the United States, a furor is developing.
You, as an American teenager, are offended by statements that a group of foreign singers would strike at the very basis of our existence as God-fearing, patriotic citizens. Then we urge you to take your records, pictures, and souvenirs to the pickup point about to be named. And on the night of its appearance in Memphis,
The bond between you and me, it will be known forever. You showed me how to be free, stronger than me. You'll be known forever. I know without me or three, I hope to stay around for some time. But there's something pressuring me. I don't know how things will play out this time. The things you read in papers, where truth is merely capers with misleading headlines. A man as big as Jesus would only want to lead us to the light like a Lord. And there's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John. There's something going on here, John.
The light is turned blue, and I believe we're on. And Anne, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We haven't had a show for a while.
Yes, and that's mainly my fault, and I apologize.
Do you want to clue them in so that everybody has an idea of what, I mean, just a little bit, because I know you can't get into it too deeply, but so they understand why we haven't been on a live show for a while.
Yeah, I've had a serious health crisis. It was a crisis, and I've been dealing with it for over a year, and it just took me out, basically. I had a very bad reaction to a medication, and it's left me with a permanent health condition now. So I'm slowly getting back into the public eye again. I've been doing better, kind of taking each day as it comes. So, but I've always kept up the research.
Oh yeah, she's still been writing.
Driving Marianne crazy.
She does drive me crazy, but that's all right. And I was working a lot of overtime while you were in doing that. So we sort of had ourselves a break, but not really the kind of break we want to have.
No, it wasn't a very good break.
No.
You know, but yeah, things are turning around, and we've got more, Marianne's got more time now, and I've been feeling better and slowly getting back into the public eye again, but the research is always foremost. Exactly. And Marianne and I we got 3 books going at the same time, so it'd be interesting how that all turns out.
Well, I'm going to focus on one at a time because I'm trying to juggle them is sort of hard in my head, but we want to get the nonfiction book out, just so you guys know. We planned on doing that last time, and then when the second book just sort of came, and then the third book sort of came, and we haven't finished that yet, but we have the nonfiction we have to finish for everybody.
Yeah, which we promise we are going to be doing.
We promise. Maybe we'll have it done by Paul's birthday.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot in there. Yeah. Oh, that's easy.
Before that, but I mean, no later. I have to give myself that drop dead like I did with this video. Otherwise, I would have kept on going. So anyway, I want to bring on Lorraine Marson. She's our little guest up here in the square.
Hi there.
Lorraine and I, and we've all been Facebook friends and in our groups together and chit chat. But first time on air, first guest. Welcome.
First time for me doing this ever.
Well, welcome. We're honored to have you. So do tell, I love listening to Beatle fans and their experience. Can you share a little bit about how you became a Beatle fan and Paul McCartney?
Well, I was a late starter because I didn't really like the Beatles. In fact, I didn't listen to them when I was only introduced about 15 years ago. And that was that was purely because I was driving to work and George Harrison's song came on all those years ago. And I thought, that's a good song. And I got home and I mentioned it to my son, who's a musician. He was in his mid-teens. And I said, the Beatles, you know, they seem to be a good group. I said, I like the song, George Harrison's song. And he said, what, you don't like the Beatles, Mum? I mean, they're one of the most talented old bands in the world. You know, their songs are beyond fantastic. And so I started to get interested, and I read Philip Norman's Shout and got hooked. And my husband always listened to the records. In fact, we've got quite a lot of albums now. But I started to buy books secondhand, and I was reading as much as I could on them, because I came to the conclusion there was something not quite right about their story. There was a lot of deaths around them, was the first thing I noticed. And there were gaps as well. And I thought, there's something missing here. I don't know what it is. And then I went onto YouTube and I noticed this conspiracy theory on Paul. And actually, Paul wasn't my favorite one. George was always my favorite one. And subsequently, I felt that the conspiracy theorists were a bit out of the way, and I just didn't take it on board. And then as more and more as time went on, I started thinking, yes, I think something's definitely happened. There were just certain things in the books that people said. And one of them was in Peter Brown, their manager. He's heavily into PR, public relations in America now. And in his book, he said that the one thing about George was after 66, that he was very morose and sad. And I thought, there must be something then that's happened tragically for him to be like that. So I'm now believing that, yes, I believe that something definitely did happen.
George did make a statement about something happening to change his life. It was some life altering in 66, but he's never said what it was.
Yeah, I've seen that video.
Yeah.
I've got a fly that's buzzing around my room at the moment. It's so annoying. Yeah, well, his wife has called our favourite man Billy on many occasions, hasn't she, in certain videos?
Yes, she's called him Billy a couple times. Yeah.
And Ringo, of course, has dropped a few hints, but that's all we're at, really, isn't it, at the moment?
He watches what he says. He tries to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have to.
I mean, I think that the original was only with us for a very, very short time, and I think we've forgotten him really in some respects. And I've got nothing against
Billy.
Paul.
She calls him Paul 2.0.
Because
2.0.
I think I have seen him in concert live, and he was amazing. And I think he has given a great deal to the music industry. It's just, if it is true, then there is a hypocrisy there. And I'm not in favor of hypocrisy. I think you have to be black and white and truthful. So for me,
it's deception.
I don't like deception, and I think that we're in a planetary position now where, because of these eclipses we're having with the sun and the moon, and I think that we're seeing some sort of reveal going on generally.
Yeah, the energies,
and I think there will be something that's going to be dropped soon on this story.
Yeah, I noticed you said something to me about that the other day. Was it the beginning? Were you thinking the beginning of the year or something? Is that what came?
I think sometime in the spring, somebody may come forward, but it's going to be denied and denied
So
and denied. You'll never get the truth now from that side.
no, right. Sadly, I know a lot of people have been calling for that, but he's not going to do it.
No, because he's got his children to think of, hasn't he? Because they've got the name. But then, I mean, I just think that, well, maybe we can learn from something from this. Maybe there's a positive.
Well, we all are getting our life lessons down here, aren't we?
We are. And that's the thing, you see, the belief in what comes after. So
yeah, it's not for us. We can't judge. We want to shine the light.
We want to shine the light, yeah. And we can't judge, but we can say we want some truth. And if it's the real one, then, well, thank God.
If it's the real one, then why all the clues, the deceptions, the misdirection, the continuous, you know what I mean, the continuation of his riffs.
I think he drops a lot of things as well.
He does.
You know, I think he's now in a position where he doesn't really need to, because we've got a new generation as well, and so they only see what's on the screen. They don't read anymore. They don't read the books. They don't delve deep.
Right. Well, and as we go, we're going to do a slide presentation today. So we're going to do a comparison of Paul and Billy 2.0. And some of them are very close. Some of them aren't. And I want to have both of your thoughts as we go through these. And I know, Lorraine, you've read the Apple Scruffs and have gotten a lot into. Do you want to explain to people who the Apple Scruffs were before we get off camera and we're in the presentation? Because I think that, oh, I had my cursor up there. I think that you'll be wanting to input on a few of these slides, some of their comments.
Okay, well, the Apple Scruffs were the young females, and I think there was some young gentlemen as well. They were early 20s, probably early teens actually, and they were a mixture of English and American girls. And they basically, when the Beatles stopped touring, they knew that they were going to go in the studio, and so they all rushed to Abbey Road, and they basically got jobs where they were working shifts so that they could stand outside those studios and wait for each one to go in. And each one of those scruffs had a favorite Beatle. And as the time went on, they had a relationship personally with them. Each of them, they would give them gifts. They would, say hello and give them flowers. And when the Beatles' birthdays happened, they they didn't have much money, a lot of them, so they saved up and gave them a gift. And
did they not get called in to do a background singing, or is that the group of girls?
They came in to do a background singing of She Cake. I think it was one of George's songs actually, but then Paul wrote She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. Because they got into Cavendish Mews. And the thing is the book that's written by Carol Bedford, actually, it's not in print anymore. And I noticed the price of it now has gone through the roof. But Carol Bedford, actually, the Scruffs, I mean, they haven't really said many good things about the book, actually, because they said that there might have been a few sort of misquotes. But I think that she was telling the truth in her book. She was a Texas girl. She came over to England. She was giving it all up to go to be near the Beatles. She had to be near George. She loved George.
Which one was this?
This was Carol who wrote
Carol.
it. But she says in this little bit snippets in the book, I mean, she says that when she saw them first in 1966, when they came to Texas, actually it must have been 65, but she said that when they got into the hotel, because they raced to the hotel and they managed to get in, her and a couple of friends, she said she was shocked how small they were as men. And that's interesting, because I was just looking at Patty Boyd's book actually, and I noticed that she quotes she's only 5'7.5" in her book. And when she stands next to George, they look similar heights. So maybe, and actually I did meet a gentleman here who met the Beatles when they were touring the United Kingdom. And when they came here, he met them off the plane. And he said, I said, what was the most endearing memory of that tour? And he said, they weren't very big. He thought they were about 5'9". And I know Paul says that he was 5'11", but I'm wondering if they might have been smaller.
I'm wondering if, and I have a picture in the slideshow of the Beatle boots towards the end. I'm wondering if that 5'11" that he said during the Mockers interview was with the Beatle boots on.
Yeah,
maybe. Those boots were like 2 inches.
Right. And there's a lot of people, eyewitnesses, that have said that they were smaller framed and shorter than what people believed to be 5'11", you know. So there's many eyewitness accounts where people have said that.
Yeah. And of course they would be smaller.
I believe it. I know Paul's inseam was 31 inches, but he was long legged, short trunk.
Right.
Yeah, short trunk. So, and George inseam was 30 inches. So it puts you, you know, somewhere around that 5'8" to 5'10" maybe, depending on your.
Now their pants back then were a little shorter, as you know, they were like at their ankles. So that inseam adjusts a little bit compared to like us now that bring it, you know, now in the modern fashion, they're longer. I think it's starting to go back up a little bit, but yeah.
And Paul designed all their stage suits too, which I think is something that people don't know about. That I read that in an original magazine from the 60s, how he designed their stage suits up until 1966 when they quit touring. So he was a fashion trend.
He was Pierre Cardin.
Yeah. But people don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little less known fact about him, that he was a fashion designer who did all their suits. He would sketch them out and then go to the tailor and say, hey, can you
do
sew this up for us? So yeah, and that was him.
Okay, well, I have a lot of slides to go through with you guys, and I want you to tell me what you see on each one. I don't know how we have to figure out how we're going to do this, as far as let me know when we're ready to go to the next slide, because some of them are, you know, since I'm going to try and go through this, and I don't think I can see your faces at the same time. We'll see.
And as we know, you know, there was quite a few physical changes that went on with Paul from that time of 66 to 67, 68. There's a lot of physical changes and personality changes also that went along with the physical. So what Marianne has done is put together a presentation, just slides, so that we can see the physical changes. And this is the Beatles in Hamburg. And there's Paul with his left-handed guitar standing next to John and Stu on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And
The original band, Pete Best on the left, Stu on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Photo by Astrid. So here's Paul, and this is probably around 1964. And the thing I wanted to show on this picture so much is, first, it's an introduction, it's Paul. But you can see the eyes the eyebrows, the ears, the teeth, everything on this picture, which we'll discuss all of those factors. Notice
And
the
he-
long eyelashes too.
And you can see he's pretty happy, jovial, easy
Yeah.
to get along personality.
Yeah. The one thing I want to point out on this picture as well that we'll discuss down the road here is Paul's left front tooth, which is the tooth that gets chipped down the road here as we go. And we'll explain that for everybody. But if you notice, it's a little overlapping at the bottom. That's just something I wanted to make people aware of as we're going through some of these slides, what you're looking at different aspects. I didn't notice that until just the other day. I don't know who put this. I'm going to say there are some pictures in here, some composites that I did not put together that I got off the internet. And this is one of them. But these were all pictures of Paul. What do you guys think of that one?
Billy looks stoned.
I think that's during the Strawberry Fields video. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that looks like Strawberry Fields. So we're talking 67 comparing to about probably 64, 60.
63, 64, 64.
So 3 to 4 years change.
Yeah, from 67. I tried to keep a lot of the pictures closer to the 67, 68, but we can tell, get some of the years on here as we go through these. Somebody had put these next two pictures together as well. They were already created. All these are different pictures of Paul. Obviously, I have that. And there we have Billy's.
So as we can see that in the early photos of Paul, he parts his hair differently from the left to the right.
Every single one of those.
It's like it's a natural part for him. And now we have it right to left, which seems more natural for this person. What do you think, Lorraine?
Yeah, I definitely think that we all have a natural parting, because they ask you that in the hairdresser, don't they? And his does tend to fall on the other side. The other thing is that interesting is that George and John and Ringo have a reddish brown hair, dark reddish brown. And I think Paul's might have been slightly darker, but he must have had the reddish tinge in it because of the Irish genetic.
Yeah.
Right.
My hair was always been dark brown, but when I would go out into the sun, you could see the different reddish tone highlights. Very subtle, but they're there.
Yeah.
And I think Paul had that you're right, he had that as well. Whereas Billy has more of it. He has more, his hair is not as dark. Except for this picture here and this one here, if you can see where my mouse is going.
But in the Let It Be, he had very black hair, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people say that they thought he was dyeing his hair at that point, but that from somebody who used to dye their hair, it's a pain in the, so.
Well, you'd have to dye everything, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Take a bath in hair dye.
Yeah.
But I am Irish, and I do have the darker brown hair, and I do have red highlights. And it's
No,
'cause
I
from
think
the
your hair
Irish.
is more reddish than brownish to me, but yeah, maybe.
But Paul had the dark, brown hair.
Black.
with-
And
With
since
black.
my grandmother, I used to say she was Black Irish. She had dark hair and freckles. as opposed in the rain. Is that correct? What they say, like the ginger, the red hair, freckles versus the
Yeah.
black Irish versus the red Irish.
Yes, the freckles go with the reddish brown hair. But then Paul looked like he had very porcelain skin, very clear skin in some ways. Especially when you see him in the early David Frost interview. I mean, he's just perfection skin-wise, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yes.
but now they had we have to look at the makeup too. A lot of times, like the Ed Sullivan Show, he had a lot of they put a lot of makeup on them. So this
Right.
picture that I have up now, somebody else had done this as well. You can see, I mean, it's Paul on the left and Billy on the right. There's a lot of pictures in here where it seems like they try to be the identical face and expressions, but here you can definitely see the difference in the eyes, the difference in the lips. The upper lip is definitely different, and the space between the nose and the lip.
Well, Paul had very cherub lips, didn't he? I mean, that's unusual.
Yeah.
He had a very unusual look in that regard.
Yes. Yep, I agree.
But that picture looks like it was, I don't know why. I feel like it's, one of those Photoshop type pictures where you're like trying to change something, which here is an example in this one here. It's this, Billy never did interviews like this from the tour. It's clearly somebody put his head on Paul's body. It's the sideburns on the Billy. It lets you know that that's like 67, 68.
But the hands are exactly the same.
Yeah. Everything is the same except for the head. Why?
To confuse the public,
Yeah.
And of
unless
course,
you have the originals.
and of course, nowadays we're so advanced with photoshopping. It's just, you would never know the difference now, really.
Yeah. Yeah. CGI is like a big thing. The words in this song just sort of struck me when I was watching this, looking at this particular slide that I wanted to add them. Anybody want to read that for somebody?
I am he as you are he as you are me and we are all together. Stupid bloody Tuesday, man, you've been a naughty boy. You let your face grow long.
Another clue there.
Yeah. Lots of clues in the lyrics from 67 on.
And also concentrating on Lewis Carroll's Alice in the Looking Glass. There's poetry in there actually that you need to look deeper at, I feel. I think that they resonated with that book.
Yes.
And what Lewis Carroll was saying, it was a bit sort of, not deja vu, but it sort of resonated with what might have occurred, this change of person. I'd have to look deeper at that one though.
Yeah, that might be something we should delve into at some point.
Because the poem at the beginning of the book is a bit.
I don't remember the poem.
Well, I haven't got a Lewis Carroll book here actually. I've got one in London because I've got another accommodation in London, but I'll dig it out.
Okay, that'd be great. We'll have to do a discussion on that at some point then. Yeah, Lewis Carroll was somebody John and Paul both seemed to like.
I think Paul had Lewis Carroll figures in his garden. And I think that's what one of the scraps.
Yes. I think if I remember right, that was Mike, his brother, gave him some of that statuary as a housewarming gift.
Mhm.
This was
Yeah, that
another
was the
picture that
first.
somebody had posted that I nicked. The picture on the right is Billy at his and Linda's wedding.
Okay,
And I do have
69.
these pictures and bigger down the road. But definitely in this one, you can see the difference in their noses, and it's nose down. Well, I don't know. It's a lot.
Well, I mean, Paul's nose was far straighter, not so hooked.
Right.
2.0 has quite a hooked nose now, but then his brother does have quite a hooked nose. So, but I wouldn't think it would change that much.
No. No. And we're talking when we see some of these pictures down the road. Well, here, let's go to the next one. We're talking about 10 years difference here. This one here, and obviously this was done by one of our Spanish speaking friends. Well, no, actually let's stay to this one. This Paul on the left is 66, and she has Paul, it says Paul 66 on the other side, but that's 76.
Yeah, and you can see the eyes are different. The width of the eyes are different.
Yeah, the width of the eyes is different. Paul's was further apart, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And much
Around her full
wider,
of face.
and brown eyes, don't forget. Paul had brown.
Right. Well, and we look here at the next one is same photo shoot on the left from 66 and from Hey Jude video recording. And even with this straight on now, the other ones, you know, was 76 versus 68, was 68, 69. You can see the difference in the noses in that 10, you know, like you said, it's only 10 years. And why is that?
So was the story that Billy was a session musician?
Yes.
And he was already standing in for the band, is that what I believe from certain quarters? And so he was easy just to move into the position.
I think he probably was a session musician. I don't think he filled in for the Beatles. I really think they took care of their own music. They were very protective of their own music. I know Paul at times would do overdubs for George's lead guitar, because George would be off, you know, with his wife or whatever, and on vacation. I know this one incident, Paul did the overdubs for Ticket to Ride, George's lead guitar. So, because George was with Patty at the time on vacation and they had to get this song finished, so Paul finished it up basically. So, it sounds to me like they took care of their own music and Paul would, you know, finish up whatever needed to be done in the studio. He was very much involved in the process of creating his music and songs to get them out in a timely manner that had to be done. So yeah, I believe Billy probably, he was around in the music scene. Personally, I think he was an agent, but I don't focus that much on him because we're not going to know much about him. There's not much information to give out his true identity anyways. I mean, basically you're just kind of,
Everybody that's out there that talks about it is really just speculating because there is no
right
information.
If he's Scottish, great, he's Scottish, you know, that's fine, whatever. He definitely does not have the Liverpool accent, I believe. he doesn't, sound at all like Paul used to talk. So
Paul
He
used
was-
to have, Paul had a
was-
more nasal voice. His nose was stuffed. He was a mouth breather. If you look at most of his mouth is usually open, whether it's a little bit or a lot, you know what I mean? He was nasal when he spoke. Billy doesn't have that. Do you guys agree with that, or?
yeah, I think Paul had a deeper voice. He also could imitate different accents, personalities. There was this interview where he was in Texas and he did a Texan, accent. It was great. It was hilarious. He did a great job. So yeah, he used to do impersonations of celebrities, and he was very, unique in that way. I don't see Billy being as comical naturally, or doing his impersonations as well as Paul. But that's my opinion. So
Well,
I
he
agree
never-
with that.
You've never seen him do the shake, have you, of the head that Paul would do on stage? That's not an easy shake to do when it's like this, like left to right. You never see him doing that now. Well, I've never seen him do it after 66.
No, he does shakes his head. He shakes his head like he's shaking his bangs out of his way without.
Oh yeah, well
touching
that's
His-
a very affected way of moving your head back, and
it's not Paul, the way Paul did his hair, did it at all.
no,
But that's Billy's sort of his thing of trying to be it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
very
bit-
unnatural.
but he does a great impersonation of Paul McCartney. You got to give him that.
Yeah.
It's been 50 plus years.
Yeah.
He must have. Well, if he was replaced, then he's done an amazing job, to be honest,
Right.
in some regards. But as I say, he needs a medal for that, I feel. I mean, I know quite a lot of people that think it's absolutely crazy that he's been that idea that he's been replaced. They just can't see it. But I think the people that have really studied it start to see the differences.
It's that statement of once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's sort of how I am. It's like, it doesn't matter. I can see the difference. And it's mostly starts with the eyes. There's a definite difference in essence is how I look at it.
Definitely, personality, the energy coming from the individual as well is different.
Right.
This personality energy is different. But then
So-
how long did we only had Paul for how many years? 6 years at best.
At best, yeah. Yeah, I mean, here in the United States too, from 64 to 66. It's really,
Right.
and to compare their musical abilities, I think is kind of stupid, because you're talking about somebody that was in the public light for less than 4 years compared to somebody that's been in the music
Now
industry
56.
for over 56, 57 years, probably longer. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. He was only 24 years old compared to, how old is he? 85 now?
Well, he's 85
older.
according to him on Magical Mystery Tour, where he
Right.
says he's 30 when he should have been saying he was 25.
So it's not really a fair comparison. We don't know what Paul could have done, in the 70s. I mean, he was setting trends. He actually revolutionized bass playing at that time, and that's according to John Lennon in his last interview, his Playboy interview in 1980. He said that Paul revolutionized bass playing when he was a Beatle. So, the musicians from that time, they were copying what he was doing. So he was setting a lot of standards and trends, and actually the Beatles did set standards and push the way,
Right.
push music in many different directions. So,
Right.
But back to the slide.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. We only have about, 300 slides to go through.
But if you look at that one from Paul from September 66, before this slide, yeah, that one, we can see on his lip that Paul does not have a big scar on his lip from that moped accident from December 26, 1965. It looks like it healed really well, but when you see later pictures of him, that scar reappears on his lip.
Very
and
pronounced.
It's quite pronounced. So scars typically don't resurface looking worse than
They
what
were.
the previous were. So
And in my opinion, that's why the mustache came about in November of 66, because 2.0 had a fresh scar. Because he was the first one then to turn around and shave the mustache 9 months later. Everybody else left theirs on, and his was gone by Sergeant Pepper. But if that scar was fresh, he had to have it. Nobody could notice that it wasn't a year-old scar anymore.
right, and I think they're kind of foolish for even doing it because it looks worse than previously.
And anybody who's watching
That's
can
right.
go back and look at look at pictures of Paul from 1966 before the fall of 66, and before the mustache shows up, and see that scar has dissipated. It's not, like we said, it's not as pronounced.
And
This
he
next
did not care if he had a scar on his lip. He went
Right.
around with a chipped tooth for
Exactly.
6-7 months.
he
Showing
wasn't
people.
going to get the tooth fixed. He didn't care about the scar either. And now all of a sudden it's a year later and we're getting cosmetic mustaches. Oh, this
He
is
only
another
fixed
one.
his tooth because
Huh?
he only fixed his tooth because Brian made him. Because
Made
they
them before they went
were
on
going
tour.
and said, you
Yeah.
need to go to the dentist to get that fixed. So he did. But
Once he could go home and have his dentist from home do it, not going to
Mhm.
George and John's dentist.
yeah, who laced him with LSD in 65,
Right.
February of 65. So yeah.
So here's this one here is another one, 64 to 76. So when I was sizing these, a lot of times I, to make sure that I was staying proportionate, I cropped, but I didn't crop that I didn't move the pictures in and out. I didn't change the depths of the picture at all. But I did measure Paul's right eyeball. A lot of times I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how can I make sure that these pictures are in the same realm, so to speak? This one I'm still having issues with because I know Billy's head is bigger than Paul's, but I don't know that it's that much bigger. But I would take my tape measure from the far left corner to the tear duct. And that's what I did with a lot of these pictures, because they're bigger and they're cropped from what other pictures were. Is I measured that, and some other aspects here as we'll go through. But anyway, that's another picture of Paul, and then Billy around 76 again, later Wings era. Now this one on the right, that picture was out there from somewhere. To me, that's Billy. And that's somebody else wrote that's Billy. Is it? I mean, where did that picture come from? Has anybody seen that, or what are your opinions on it?
That was taken from a photo session, I think in 63 as part of their publicity photos.
Okay, so then it is actually, it is actually Paul.
I've always had a problem with photographs ever since I started researching. It's just not something I'm very good at. But I always thought that was just Paul with a different look.
I guess maybe it's the seriousness and the downward. I don't know. I'm sort of on the line. Lorraine, what do you think? I'm on the.
I think it's obviously an old picture on the right, and the parting's on the left. Well, as you look at it, it's on the left.
Right.
But did Paul have a slight 1.0? Did he have a slight lazy eye? I think he did. Slight lazy right eye, maybe, if you look closely in the David Frost interview. And it looks like it's turning inwards, the right eye.
On the right picture.
On the right picture.
Or is it the angle and the fact that you can see more white of the eye to the left side of each? It's hard when this is an old fuzzy picture and it's not as well. We'll have to take notice as we go through on that.
I think I'm going to have to switch my light on. It's getting dark here. Hold on.
So again, we're at 64 versus 68, 69. I don't remember exactly the years 68, 69, the look specifically.
Mhm.
When he went disheveled.
Yeah. He went from a dapper gentleman look to a farming sort of didn't really match things very well. Or
I'm going to go through these. Just Lorraine, when anything pops in, just go ahead and speak up. That one just seems so odd, but that's just me.
longer face.
Longer face.
The only thing is that
What?
the teeth are, you see, Paul would have had those typical Lancashire teeth. I mean, the Lancashire people they're a tribe in a way. They've got those very big teeth like George had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Paul had that. Very strong teeth. They're very strong.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at that, again, if you can see a little bit on the one of Paul here, that there's a little bit of an overlap on his left tooth to the right. Now, granted, he had his tooth fixed in 66, but at the same time, I think there's some better pictures coming up that'll show that when we get into the teeth section. We'll go through these a little quicker here. 64 Hard Day's Night side on the right or on the left, and Sarge 67 after when I was just saying the mustache came off. 67 with Pepper, and if you can see here, the lip scars, you can see the lip scars there are noticeable. And again, like the part you're saying, the part's not. Before he had it always coming down over his forehead. I don't know what
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Paul liked to be clean shaven too. He didn't like facial hair, but he also said that shaving was a curse of manhood. So, yeah, so that's something too. He liked to be clean shaved, and then we started seeing him with a beard, mustache, and just looking.
Well, and of course, he says Billy Paul 2.0 says that the drugs at that point were flowing. So I don't know. But there again, I'm not sure. I think this is again in the Sgt. Pepper era here on the right.
But we see him, in the past couple of years, he was doing video chats and stuff, and he's got his his scruff on, his facial hair,
Yeah.
doing these interviews. And I just saw a photograph of him recently, and he's got a white beard and mustache. And he just looks horrible, absolutely horrible. And I don't think Paul would want to be
No.
seen out in public like that at all. He always took care of himself.
Well, we can see that during the get back sessions, but they're all down the road here in these slides. So this one here, I don't know what the picture date is on the right. But I went ahead and drew the blue lines in so we can see a difference here in the size. So the other thing I noticed, if you look at Paul, his right eye, right here, he has this slope that comes in here. See that?
Mhm.
I noticed that on a lot of pictures that you can see his eyes that way, where it is lower, it tilts lower than what Billy's doing later pictures. But I did this again, measured the eyeballs, and it's gone right through here, and it matches up the tip on these pictures here. But where Billy gets some length going, he has a higher eyelid, and he has a larger upper lip and chin. So I'm trying to think, it was the Carlucci's, right, Anne, that did the facial analysis?
Yeah, that was July of 2009 when the Italian scientists did photograph analysis, and they set out to prove that the rumor was not right. It was false. It was just a rumor, and they ended up proving that he was replaced instead.
I
And
have
that
several of their photos coming up, but one of the things that they mentioned was the difference from the nose, the septum. I wasn't quite sure when they were when I was reading some of this, if they were talking about the width in here, because Billy does have a narrower nose than Paul. Paul's nose is shorter and broader. Billy's is longer. But he also has this bigger, is this the section they were talking about?
Yeah, the nose from the lip
Yeah,
Okay.
filtrum.
is longer than
Yeah.
original.
And
And
it's
you can't change these features.
no. And you can obviously, you can also see the difference in the chin.
And being a singer, you wouldn't want to change anything that deals with your mouth, because that's going to change how
Or your nose.
the sound resonates from your mouth when you sing. So you don't
Right.
want to mess with that, unless there's trauma, of course.
Yeah. And here's another angle of that. We think a lot of times Billy early on was using some prosthetics as well with the ears, even though we'll get into the ears and showing better pictures here, but Paul's ears were semi-attached. They weren't attached totally, but they were semi, whereas Billy's aren't. But some of these earlier pictures, the tilt of the ear is different, but the shape might have been the same if he had a prosthetic ear on. It's just there's another Sergeant Pepper picture. Now I lined up the bottoms of the chins and the size of the, again, corners of the eyes. I just can't see that your eyeball doesn't grow. So if you match up the size of the eyeball, it should be left to right. Should give you a better picture of, their comparisons. Again, and here's another one. Now that's again later 70s, under wings. Paul always had, look at that. He always had that puppy dog sad brow furrow. You can you see that? Again, This is Billy on the right with 1976. It's when he went up and received his award for, was it Live and Let Die
Okay.
at the Grammys? He and Linda ran through from the back of the auditorium, ran through up onto the stage, took the award and turned around and ran back out.
Well,
It was just odd. But anyway, here's it was even odd for him, you know, that he didn't want to talk. 65 versus end of 66.
definitely the chin is different there. And you can see a little bit of his lip scar
Yeah.
in 67.
Yeah, this right here is very predominant there.
And just the color of his hair.
Yeah. Studio lighting. It's the same inside dark picture with studio light, so why?
And the
Mm.
part's different.
65, 67, 67 going maybe into 68. Again, like you said, longer chins.
Top lips thinner
Yeah.
on the right.
Yes.
Cute pout face, scouring pout face. You guys can, anytime you want me, I can keep going or just tell me when you want to say anything. Again, here you can see a difference. Paul's nose, shorter, wider. Billy's longer,
Mm.
thinner, with the definite difference in the tip. Somebody else had this slide up, but they had the wrong date in here, so I graded out on the right. Again, I think this is around 76 for Fall's name on the right hand side.
Definitely the chin. Really, and the lips are just so different. And even the width of their lips are different. You can see there.
Mhm. He does an awful lot of pouting, trying to make his mouth smaller. As we go down here, we'll see some of these. Again, look at the difference here in the nose. Here's one where Paul's actually pouting. Now, the thing about this picture is, and now I did the lines, and again, you can see here where I'm saying Paul has this little bit of a droop on his on his right eye. Lining those up. If his mouth was shut, his chin would have even been up higher.
Yeah.
And I can't find an ear over here, but I think his ears are up here further than what Paul's is here on the left.
It's the eye color that's different.
Yeah.
No, you haven't got color there, but.
And here his ears are not out. They're pinned back.
Yeah, because it's noted that Paul had quite sticky out ears like George.
Right.
So unless he's had them pinned back now.
But why? Why would you do that in your later years? I think he just got rid of the prosthetic ears that he wore for the first couple years. He had a lot of prosthetics. It's a shame this one isn't in color. We would see the difference in the eye color. You can see this is light.
Yeah.
Here's his little overlap. like I said, when I started doing these, that was the first time I noticed that was going through these this week. Paul's lashes. This was somebody else's slide. Was out
Oh,
on
that's
the
very
internet.
good. You definitely see the eye color there.
Yeah. And the difference, there is a difference in the ears. And like you said, Ann, here, look, you can see the lip scar.
Mhm. But that photograph of Paul always bothered me.
This one?
His eyes, yeah, his eyes, particularly his left eye.
Yeah. We can speculate, but we probably shouldn't, but yeah, there's a lot of pictures of Paul where you think you see the sorrow of something in his expression. This is one of those. Somebody did a job on doctoring up those, photoshopping the teeth.
Yeah, I think we could see those from outer space.
Probably. Magical Mystery Tour, I'm guessing, on the right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, head proportion, looking at it a little bit bigger on the right, but again, the nose on the left shorter.
Mhm. And I think that's Paul in '66 when they came back from the American tour.
The one
That
on
was
the
it.
left, that's one
Yeah.
here.
I think so.
So
That
we're
looks good.
talking about a year and a
Yeah.
half difference. Yeah, and I think the one on the left is again 66, maybe during rain or paperback writer time frame.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll scoot through these a little bit since they're all similar in what we've already discussed. And this one here, I put up the line for the chins and I measured the eyeball again.
Okay.
The one on the right, now that's from Fool on the Hill. It's just another one of those very odd pictures. Here you can see Paul's semi-attached. Fuller lips, shorter nose. Wearing glasses inside, which we'll have glass pictures coming up. I'm going to
Okay.
scoot through these a little bit. Anybody can go back and stop. Now these are only like 2 years apart. Some of these in this grouping. Wider jaw. Again, Shakespeare, was that in 65?
64.
64. Okay, 64 versus 67, 68. More to 68.
Oh wow. That's
So he's protruding his mouth. He does that a lot.
He I think because when we get down here where we show the mouth shapes, I think that he tends to suck in his cheeks a little bit and pout, he try to make his mouth look a little smaller. At least back then he was doing that. Again, you can see the difference in the upper lip. Whoops, I went back the wrong way. Here you can see Paul's lashes again, and his ear, and his nose, rounded tip up here. Round skull. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
This one's longer. See this lip scar showing again.
Now that looks like the video after John died and he came out in public and was chewing his gum.
Chomping.
Yeah.
He doesn't chew gum, he chomps. And I never, Paul, when he was chewing gum, I never saw him chomp gum like that. Anything?
Well, I think that sums it up.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now the one on the left is when they met the Queen. I almost feel like the one on the right is in a similar circumstance. He's meeting, obviously he's meeting and greeting somebody. Black tie. This picture on the right just bothers me, but
What bothers you?
I don't know. I just sit there and I say, it's not Paul and it's not Billy. It's just like, who are you? But it says Paul McCartney when you look at this picture. So it's just, I don't know. It's just different for me. Here's when I was saying about sucking in the cheeks, making that pout. Another one doing the same thing. Here you can see where we were saying about Paul's ears. If you can see here, attached. Here
So
I think,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Do you have the pictures from the Italian report
Yeah, they're coming up.
coming up?
This one here, I feel like you can see a difference in the coloring, the face coloring, because of the lights hitting. Paul was
You know,
very,
he 2.0 lost a lot of weight in the picture on the right. He was a lot bigger in Let It Be, 1969.
yeah. This is about 67, 68. The end of when I say 67, I mean like this end of 67.
So then he gained weight then.
He gained weight. And you can see that in those pictures that'll be coming up where I have the swimsuits. That's why I said I'll just scroll through some of these because these are still in profile pictures before we get down to talking about some of the others. One of the things Paul always did too during interviews was he would bite his fingers or have his fingers in his mouth. Billy never does that so much as he's always like doing this, what he's doing here, where he's sort of like wiping the corner of his mouth out, type of a thing.
But you know, their hands were different.
Yeah.
Paul's fingers were a lot slimmer and longer.
Okay. And you can see in that picture that Paul's using his pointer finger,
Yeah.
where Billy's using his middle finger.
Yeah. Billy uses his middle finger a lot.
Well, actually, you very rarely see 2.0's hands actually in interviews. It's very hard to see his hands in one position.
Well, he's always saying, and when somebody's lying, they give themselves self-comfort. And he touches his nose quite frequently, which is one of those things. Okay, here's where we're going to start looking at some of these ears. See the difference here now on the left where I'm saying like attached, semi-attached, whatever in the earlobe.
Mm-hmm.
Billy's left ear is definitely different. It sits different as well. I want everybody to look at the creases here, where we're saying here and here.
Let me just shut this door.
There again, see the difference in this is all, these are all his left leaning. Left leaning, different ear. This is even different here.
We had some round monkey ears, really, Paul, didn't he?
Yeah.
Definitely bigger.
Here's a good one when you're seeing the difference in the nose. Now, somebody can say, oh, he's getting older. We're talking about 10 years. We're not talking 50.
And I think Paul's original color hair's there, that reddish.
Yeah. When he's out in the sunlight.
Yeah.
But this nose, straight, round tip, straight, down under. And this area here is always different. Same thing.
Now you can see Paul's hands. He has distinctive fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And the tips have got that sort of, as though he was biting his nails.
Yeah. Here he is biting his nails. Or his fingers, just his anxiety. But again, now look at the nose. Now this picture is from their wedding. 69.
March 12th.
Yeah. So we're only talking a couple years difference here. We're not talking some outlandish amount of years. Again, see the difference in, look at Billy's ear. Look at his earlobe. This picture's been out there for years, but it's a good one because it does show the lineup. Oops. Same with this one. Did a split screen. He's just definitely bigger.
Mhm.
All righty.
Well, even Ruth McCartney said that Paul is 6'2".
Yeah. Yeah. When
Yeah.
she made the point of saying about the gum chain.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And I saw on the internet his official height is 6'1", and 64 you have their height at 5'11". So either way, we've got several inches difference.
So this was one where I was pulling pictures of feet. So I'm going to start going. Now we went through face. Now we're going through some different aspects. So it's always been noted, and it's a shame Linda's not on here with us today because she's a reflexologist, I think is what she said. And Billy has this hallux extended where his hallux sticks up. And that's always been very noticeable in the Abbey Road picture, his feet sticking up. It's very hard to find their feet. Usually they're cropped off and whatnot, but I did find several, and then blew up the picture. So here's Paul. Now these were back early 60s.
Yep, 63, I think.
63. Okay, and you can see there's no toes extending. A little bit of an arch here. Arches here, but his toes are definitely different. Now this one is perplexing. The one on the left is the one that I'm used to seeing, and his foot's covered underneath the fan mail.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the
I believe
right,
that's the original.
huh?
I believe that's the original photograph.
Yeah. The one on the right, I feel like that has to have been a photoshopped in foot. I'm not good with photoshopping. Lorraine, how are you? I mean, I know you sent me another picture for down the road here where he looks photoshopped, but
I'm not Photoshop,
not up on it.
but
It just looks like that would be not the type of, unless your foot's double jointed. I don't know how you get that type of an angle to your foot and have your hallux stick up like that. Let alone, like I said, I've never seen his hallux stick up on these other pictures. So my opinion is this was photoshopped in, but I'm not an expert. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Yeah, it looks like he's hyperextending his ankle. And that would be quite painful actually to do.
Yeah,
So I think it's cropped, it's photoshopped myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it would hurt and not be relaxing reading a letter.
Looks fractured actually.
Yeah.
If you fractured your foot, you twisted your foot just right. Yeah. I don't think it's natural.
Right. So here's, like I said, with knowing that, I was trying to find more pictures, found this picture here where you can see on Abbey Road, the toes are sticking up. Now here during help, this is from the Bahamas, 65, toes are down. He actually looks like his feet are cold or something. Again, this one here on the left is Paul, flat feet. One on the right is Billy, probably around 67, 68 again. I'm just trying to go by the no mustache, so it's not early 67, and it's, but his where did I have this next picture, or where I had this listed? Toe Jam football. Again, here's another picture. He's actually has his left hallux going down, and I just came across this one. The toes are all curled underneath, splashings. So they're all Paul. Any comment?
It looks like he's having a good time.
I think he was trying to get the cameraman, actually. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be him. Little prankster.
Yeah. So here's one I started of is Paul's mouth. Paul has like the Carlucci's. Here's one of their pictures, I think. He has as you can see, like the front teeth, and then it goes back. He has a small palate.
Right.
Definitely a different size over here. Same. This tooth, I believe, was probably ground to match Paul's.
Now, when this report came out in July of 2009, Paul 2.0, he went on the David Letterman show shortly thereafter to debunk the rumor. And that's when he, told David Letterman that he's the imposter.
Yeah.
And then they were talking about Michael
He is,
Jackson.
this is me. He is whatever you said.
Right. So
Right.
yeah, that's the interview. So this report comes out, it gets published, and then within a short amount of time, a couple days, I think, if not that very day, he was on the Dave Letterman show talking about the rumor and how the Americans started this rumor in '69, which is not true. The rumor was going around London in 1966, September 66. So the timing of that, I think, is just perfect, where this report comes out, and then Billy's out there saying, no, it's just the crazy Americans doing this rumor. So, he was just out there trying to suppress, and suppress this report on the David Letterman show. Same time.
Yeah. This picture here, Paul has, they both have big front teeth. I mean, that's evident. Whether the one on the right is natural big front teeth or they're, extensions, who knows, but they're actually look bigger than Paul's, looking at this picture. These are Paul's. Again, you can see his front teeth here, but then he slopes back.
Yeah, he had a smaller mouth, smaller palate.
Yeah. And I think that's why you see Billy a lot of times puckering up his, pouting his lips. Paul had some really straight teeth.
He's got a wider mouth though, hasn't he?
Billy does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
got the
I mean,
wider-
you can see you can see here on his uppers how they slope back. I don't know that they're actually lined up with his lower. It's hard to say. Now this one, I actually was looking at that when I zoomed in on this. I almost wonder if this tooth wasn't broken at some point. Whoops. Do you see what I'm looking at?
Mhm.
All right, there we're done with the teeth. Let's go to this picture. Anne?
Yes. Oh, that's the moped accident from December 26, 1965 that Paul talked about. Mike, his brother, took these photographs. And when Mike asked him, why do you want me to take a photograph of you like this? And Paul stated, because it's the truth.
And exactly. And what was the truth? Because the moped accident got put out there. Was it Brian that put it out or Derek?
Well, Paul talked about it in an interview
Yeah.
that, he was out riding his moped and he ran over a rock and flipped over. So
I think
He was
that's
out there though riding his moped on the night of a full moon.
Yeah, I think that's mentioned in the book written on the biography of Tara Guinness Brown.
okay. So Tara
I-
was with him, wasn't he?
He was with them.
Mhm.
I believe so. I'd have to read the book again, actually. It's so long since I've read it.
But the thing that struck me was their accounting is they were out riding, going to his cousin's house on mopeds on a night where there was a full moon. So when you go back to 1965 and look for the full moon, the full moon was December 13th or December 12th, not the 25th. It was a whole 2 weeks earlier, or almost 10 days or so. It's just an oddity for this story.
Mhm.
We'll say it's a story. I will say that.
Right. Yeah. So he got to his cousin's house and his cousin called the local doctor, country doctor, who came out and sewed up his lip. So Paul refused any medication, any numbing medication to have stitches in his lip. And I read in another biography that he had a fear of doctors. So he did not want the doctor to give him any medication whatsoever. So he insisted, no Novocaine, no lidocaine, just stitch up my lip. Don't give me anything, because he developed a fear of doctors, which I think is very interesting because, Dr. Asher was Jane's father. And apparently, Paul had a cold and Dr. Asher was going to give him something for his cold and he refused. He wouldn't have anything. He just, let it go. So that's a learned behavior. So he developed this fear, and I think it's just because of the knowledge that he had of what doctors were doing to the elites.
Yeah.
Like I think, Dr. Robert, that song really gives insight as to what was going on in the music industry with doctors giving the wealthy, anything that they wanted, any narcotic that they wanted, and they got to have these, parties and whatnot. So it all plays.
There is a piece in the Guinness Brown book which I'd have to read again, but it does say that at that time there was an American that came to London, and he was a doctor who was pushing drugs. It was a certain drug he was pushing for the ones with the money and the in the musical industry. In fact,
Right.
I can find the chapter on it. I'll try and find the chapter on it.
Right.
Because
Right.
Tara Guinness Brown was taking drugs. She
Yeah.
was a friend of Paul, and I hate to say this, but I'm sure Paul was as well. And I know somebody said he wouldn't, but I think he was.
I think he was being laced with drugs against his will. It kind of started off like, with the dentist, Dr. Riley, when he drugged George and John's tea back in February '69. It was, I think, 65. Oh, 65, sorry. Back in '65. Yeah, I think Paul was being drugged against his will and knowledge, and that's why he developed this fear and a distrust of many of his friends and healthcare workers and elites
Yeah, in general.
in general.
I mean, now we do know he did like to smoke his weed, but he had anxiety. So
And really, what do they have for anxiety in the late '60s? Practically nothing.
Valium.
Well,
They had
anything,
the
did they?
dolls, Valley of the Dolls.
If you had depression, there wasn't anything. They didn't have the mental health support then that we have.
Right. So I don't blame him for smoking pot to ease his anxiety.
No, can you imagine? I mean, I can't imagine the pressure cooker they were under. So
Right.
So here's now 2 pictures of the broken tooth after the fact that he let go. And as you can see here, there's not much of a scar anymore. These are during paperback writer and rain. So we're talking about 4 months later, 5 months later, the scars dissipated. It's not coming. I mean, you can still see a little bit of a ridge, but not much. It's more like here, you can see it's more on the underneath side. So this is paperback writer May 19th. Over here is the Melody Makers, September 13th. And this is after the tour, so his tooth was fixed. Attached ear. Just pointing these things out so people know to start looking at that stuff. This is, I don't know, this is probably one of the last pictures that's out there from September '66, before the incident. This picture was out there on the internet.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, you can definitely see the eyes.
Yeah. Billy has a bigger space here in his eyes. It's all those little bits that when you add them up together make his face longer. The little bit here, the little bit here, the little bit here, the little bit here. It gives that extra length of his head. Look here at the ear. This is not Paul's ear. Look, Paul's ear comes out here and is shorter because this comes up and around. This is longer and up and down. Another picture of the eyes. I'll go through these a little more, but anybody can stop and pause and look at these pictures to compare the eyes. Now these are older ones. There are Billy on the right, in the middle, but your eyes don't change that much. I don't know the background on this picture. It was from when the person who was doing the comparisons. Andy, are you familiar with this picture at all?
No, I'm not with this one.
I don't know what the measurements are, but there was definitely a difference. They were measuring pupils and iris and points. Obviously there's points here. I just don't know what they actually mean. Now here is again when I was saying Paul's jaw is wider, face is rounder, his skull's rounder. You can see the ears. Difference in the lips. Nose wider.
Lorraine, how long did it take for you to realize that there was a difference between the two Pauls?
Not right away, because he's done a very good job. And he does look similar, and it took me a number of years actually, and that's why I've read the books. That's why I had to read all the books, because I just was looking at every single paragraph to see if there was something that was dropping the truth. And it's not easy to find. I mean,
Right.
there are sentences, and then you question why they've written that, and you think, why did Tara Guinness Brown die in a car accident in December of '66, and he was best friends with Paul?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do say that a white car was, in the air. A white van was in the area a few hours before, and Tara was a very good driver. There was no need for that accident.
Okay.
So for me, it's those sort of things, and that's when you start looking, because you think, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
It's not just the look, it's what's in the books and the story. So you've got a picture, of a story.
There's all levels.
And when we lose them all and they've gone, the next generations are going to even want to look deep. And it'll be people like yourselves who have done the research that they'll come back to. Because we are the generation that Marianne and I were little toddlers, but
we still remember.
We've carried our lives along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can plot my own timeline with the Beatles and with the different songs that came out, and everybody does that with music. This song reminds you of this song reminds you of when you were there, that type of a thing. A lot of mine's with the Beatles. So I'm going to scoot on here. These next few are the eyeglasses. So as you can see here, we have Paul with glasses. His glasses, and I didn't know they maybe did this back in the time, that they were like, what do they call those? Tempered glasses, that they changed light with inside when you're inside versus outside.
Transition?
Yeah, I guess. I only have readers, so I don't know. Transitional lenses, yeah. But I feel like some of these are transitional lenses for him. Just because you can see they're clear and then they're dark and whatever. But Paul was wearing glasses in '66 primarily. As you can see here, this is Revolver. Has glasses on in the studio.
Was he short-sighted then?
I'm not sure. Here's the next one. You early on, you see him out. 64, you see him reading papers, magazines. Paul always was reading something, and you didn't see the glasses on then. But all of a sudden here they popped in.
Unless they were a cosmetic fashion item.
But not in this, but for this in the studio. Why? With the headsets over top.
Well, I know Paul being a prankster, he used to wear John's glasses.
Yeah, but
And then when
He-
John went to look for his glasses, he couldn't find his glasses because Paul was wearing them and John couldn't see that. But
yeah,
what we are also seeing, like in those early photographs, I think it was just Paul playing a joke on John, right? But as we go along, you see him in the studios, and all of a sudden he's wearing sunglasses in the studios, and he's wearing glasses more, as
Right.
you pointed out. There's something there that
Yeah.
had to be affecting his eyes. And when I looked at, you know, the mind control programs and the LSD experimentations that they were doing, lights bothered people's eyes as a side effect from these mind control programs. Not to say Paul was being mind controlled or anything, because we don't know that, but I just read that it is a side effect of mind controlling. Having bright lights bother people's eyes, so they started wearing, you know, sunglasses and things. So something was going on, I think, in the studios with his eyes.
Yeah,
being
because these are all
sensitive for some reason.
pretty much in the studio inside.
Yeah.
Even
And I
here.
think that, you know, he was being laced with LSD. They were. I mean, George even admitted that they would. Yeah, John's glasses.
Yeah.
That, you know, they went to these parties and they were given LSD and they didn't like it, so they ended up bringing their own drinks to these parties. Now that comes from George, and George knows he was in it, right?
Right.
So I think there was definitely some effect going on with him, his eyes, and he may have been needing readers or something at that time too. We just really don't know. But
No, but there was a lot of my
Neither
go ahead.
of the parents were wearing glasses, so it's normally hereditary.
that's right.
Yeah,
And his
and
brother
I
doesn't
didn't look to see if Mike had any pictures with glasses, but these pictures are all predominantly, you can see, in the same time frame. 65, and I don't even know if they were 65, but mostly all 66. And then here's the one here where this picture here, his passport picture. I'm not quite sure about that picture. A lot of people think that's one of the first pictures of Billy being Paul.
But we have to remember too, with the passports, Paul didn't use one.
Yeah,
People knew
He didn't need
who he
one.
was. He didn't need one. He could go over to Ireland and not need a passport because, oh, you're Paul McCartney? Yeah, come on in. And he goes to France. It was kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, you're Paul? You know, come on in. We know who you are.
Yeah, but
They did need it, really.
he forgot his
Yeah.
passport going into France, didn't he?
I'm sorry?
When he went with Mal Evans, when he went to meet Mal Evans in Bordeaux, that was 67, wasn't it? When he went to France, he forgot
November 66.
he forgot his passport. And he said to the customs officers, but you can let me in because you know who I am. He
Yeah,
didn't have his passport with him. And when I read that, I thought, Paul, the character I've assumed that he was, would have been very thorough. Because if you see him in one of the hotel rooms, he was actually managing, in a way, the three others.
Yes.
When he says to Ringo, pack in, he's telling them, you know, you got to get ready, man. You got to put your jacket on. You got to look smart. I just would not believe that he would have forgotten his passport.
right.
Right. And when they came to the United States, I mean, they were just rushed right through customs. And, you know, I forgot which one of the Beatles said that, you know, they didn't need their passports because people knew who they were and they were rushed through customs anyways because they had to get to where they're going. And there was such a crowd of people around, you know, don't delay them. get them a move on. So, and back then, it wasn't as strict as it is now, too. There was a lot more leniency with.
But if you were going into France, you would have had very strong borders. And so,
Yeah.
2.0 has forgotten his passport. I mean, he just, there's something question mark over that.
2.0 thought he could get away with a lot of things being Paul McCartney. And that's why he got arrested in Japan. So that's there for another story, another day. These are the only pictures I could find. So the comparison here of Paul wearing glasses a lot in 66. We think he was replaced in the fall of 66. These are the only pictures of 2.0 that I pretty much found. Only one picture with some sort of, this one here in the middle, during his Buddy Holly day of, doing that video, which Buddy Holly wore glasses. So
Sure.
that sort of null and voids this picture, but it was out there. The only pictures you see of him in the insides with glasses is this one, and I think that was a prop. The other ones they're all sunglasses, and really there wasn't that many of Billy wearing sunglasses so much as it is younger as it is now older.
Mhm.
So here we got a lot of slides to go through, guys. We got to pick up. Here's Paul being right eye dominant. This is what we believe to be 2.0 in Africa. It is a different camera. I know somebody, was it you, Lorraine, or somebody else this week said about the camera, they thought the camera was the same, and then I came across these pictures and you can see that they're different. Paul's definitely looking out his right eye. Billy's looking out through, it looks like through the middle. It's hard to say.
Oh, my battery's going here.
Plug yourself in.
I'm trying, but it doesn't.
These next ones I got of here, like here, whenever Paul would make a mistake, he'd stick out his tongue sort of like in some fashion. This I don't get, but anyway.
Sorry, it cracks me up.
This one cracks you up.
Yeah, that one cracks me up.
It just, if you're on stage, why would you do that? I don't know. Anyway, so here we go back to the ears. Different earlobes. Different ears. Different ears. Different face. Okay, here, Ann, I think this is the Carlucci picture. I'm not quite sure.
That is. That's the Italian Wired report.
Yeah.
2009.
And I don't know what all the different angles and things mean other than the fact that they're not the same.
Right. Yeah. The
It's
ear
the
shape
markers.
inside your ear is different.
Yeah.
And the outside is also different. But
Again, Billy's is longer. You can see here the length. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's from the Italian report. Yep.
Yeah. And here you can see this a little bit. Here's this ridge where, whoops. See, well, let me do that. See here, it's the ridge. Here's it here. Over here, it comes out, it's flatter. But I'm not an ear expert, but I'll leave it to them. They actually did that information for us.
Ladies, I'm just going to leave you for 2 minutes, I'm afraid, because I've got to stop. This battery's going to go any minute.
Okay, no problem.
Get a
We'll
charger.
carry on.
We'll go move through some of these slides a little bit.
That's good. Yep.
Again, here, look here at the difference in the earlobe. Can you see that? I mean, there's no explanation for these kinds of differences other than they're a different person.
Boss mom.
Yeah, definitely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can find that report anymore on the internet.
I might have something saved somewhere from several years back, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go look. It's, as you know, Anne, I've seen your research have piles of books, notebooks, books and books. My internet is, my computer's the same way. It's crazy. So I started trying to do markers here. We're going to start getting into some pictures on the body lengths and body, trying to do these height comparisons. Like you said earlier, Anne, Paul was shorter in the torso. Billy gets a lot of his heights in that area as well. A little bit in the legs, but a lot more so in the torso. Now this one, I use this picture of Paul from this photo shoot a lot. He was with Mal doing pictures. The one of Billy on the right is the honeymoon. Well, I should probably say 69. I thought it was 68. I think he was with Linda. You can see Heather there. She they were in the Bronx or New York City somewhere. Definite, again, we're only talking 2 years. Difference in the noses, difference in the mouth and the chin. But here you see the definite difference in the body. Same here. What was it now? This picture was done by Emilio Larry on the left from Help. And he said, you know, Paul was small with an exaggerated leg coming out here on the other side of 2.0. I like that, 2.0.
I do too. I'm gonna have to adopt that, I think.
Again, Billy with his hallux extended up.
Now, did he really have 6 toes?
I don't think so. I think that's more of the myth from areas of, yeah. Did Crowley actually have 6 toes? I mean, is there a picture of that too? Where did that even come from to try and link the two together?
I think that's all in memoirs, isn't it?
Well, it is, but that's what I mean. Memoirs, where does that all come from? I mean, I can't see that came from Billy. Anyway.
Well,
I think, did you know, there are some bits in that book, I'm going to read it. It's not an easy book to read, but there are some little bits in there that do, you do wonder if it is true.
Oh, I definitely. I mean, we got lots of bits in our book. Anne just went through our first book. And how many sections are 604?
Yeah, just over 600.
Yeah.
And he's endorsed the book in the front, hasn't he?
The what?
2.0 has endorsed the book in the front as truth. And some of it isn't true.
I have to pull out my copy and look.
It's right in he endorses it. He gives it his blessing in the front of the book. And I think there are things in there that are true. But there is one thing in there that does make me think, and I won't mention it on here until I've researched it again.
Okay.
But when they go into all this sort of Tavistock stuff that Mike Williams picks up on, that seems to get into a different realm, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we even picked up on that in our books. The Shadow of a Baseman gets into some of the satanic rituals and such, the occult to an extent, because it is there. I mean, whatever, it's there.
Yeah, and as
Okay.
the series goes on, we do even more
Right.
into the New World Order, what the role the Beatles played in that, how they rebelled against that, but they were caught up in it and they couldn't do anything. So yeah, as the series goes on, we go on a little bit more about the New World Order, but personally, I don't think Billy has 6 toes. And here's why. Because if you had 6 toes on one foot, that's going to throw your balance off. So they have to remove that extra toe to give you the correct balance to walk. So that's why I don't think Billy had 6 toes on either foot, both feet. I don't think so.
If you look at this side, this picture here and his side of his foot, I think he has Billy has a wider foot.
Right.
I've seen some angles where it just looks like his foot, and it's just the way it's angled in the pictures.
So being
right.
a taller man, you're going to have bigger feet
Right.
to accommodate
Exactly.
the height. So I think it's just he's
And
got bigger feet.
Paul's foot was an 8, UK 8. Billy's, I think, is a 10. So it's different size. Again, Paul was 24 and a half. I mean, he was over the age of 24 when the replacement happened. Do you grow inches? Do you change feet size, inseam size, all that, like what we've been talking about? Not at that age.
No. Usually
Right.
men are done growing by the age of 20, far beyond, way before age of 24.
Correct. So I want you to notice, like here, now Paul's crossed his legs and Billy has 2 in this picture. But we'll get into some of the stance. Now this one I found interesting just because we're looking at Paul's height, Billy's height in comparison. He looks very long and tall in that picture, even though he's sitting down. Agree?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
And then mixed height is 5'10", which was what John's was supposed to be. And of course they weren't that much different, but you can see the difference just even in their leg lengths. So here I superimposed a picture of Paul, sort of tried to line it up with the window from the car and stuff. And he falls right around the same place there that Mick did in seating wise, but compared to Billy, I mean, I know this isn't scientific, this is just, but it's definitely showed me something. Same with the bikes. No, it's hard to say because we don't know what size bikes they were, but So here's one where we were talking about the hair and getting into a bath. It was just an obvious difference in arm hair on this picture.
Mm.
And notice too, like Paul standing, Paul had a way of standing. See, he always popped out one of his, whether it was his right foot or his left foot.
Oh yes. See what you mean.
And
he never looked at his.
He never looked at his frets. Never. No, I'm not going to say never. Can't. He did occasionally, but not like the other one.
One every 60 seconds.
Yeah. So what I did with these pictures, when I have the guitar and the heights, I actually measured from here down to here. I don't know what you call the face of the guitar, whatever the body of it is. I measured this. These are the same. So if they're the same, then the proportion should be the same for the rest of the picture, correct?
Yeah, should be.
So you can definitely see the height difference in that one.
Can you go back just pop back for a sec. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where the straps are on the base.
Okay, so on Paul's, he wrapped his strap underneath the fret and it wraps around.
Okay.
You can see it here. He has it, his strap splits right there.
Okay.
This front part comes over top and the back part comes around. So he has his, I was checking, I was checking that. Billy's strap here, I'm not sure how this is connected.
Okay, so, all right, because I thought Billy kept his up closer to the neck.
Yeah,
Up to
he does on some, and then some of these, we can check that as we're going through.
Okay.
Some of these, I don't think he has it on at all because he's interchanges his to the piano, to the guitar, to the Rickenbacker, and then back. So I think that that's a little bit, but I don't know how he has this connected. But I do want you to look at, this is the other thing I want you to look at besides the height. Paul has his Hofner up here at his waist. Billy has his down here at his hips. And you'll be able to see that more apparently. Here it is up here. It's up at Paul's waist and it's down here on his hips. Paul plays a little bit more left to right as opposed to on a diagonal, as you can see in this picture here. Again, I measured the bases so that they're the same. So we can, to me, these is where you can actually see the difference in his height and the fact that this is how Paul plays. He also moves differently, obviously, when you can see some of those pictures of. Again, Billy's is way lower. It's a different bass, but it's still lower. You can see a bigger body.
And I believe the Rick is 3 inches longer than the Hofner.
In the fretboard or in the bass, in the
In
actual body?
the length of the bass guitar.
Yeah.
The full length of the bass guitar. I think the Rick is like 33 inches and the Hofner is.
Well, I have that one picture of the bass with the Hofner comparison. Again, you can see Paul has this up closer to his chest, down by his hips. He has this attached at that corner, so that doesn't.
I have a friend who's a professional bass player.
Yeah.
And he told me that the Hofner violin bass that Paul played, they are made for shorter framed bass players.
Right. It's a lighter bass too.
And it's also a lighter bass, yeah. So since Paul was a smaller frame person, the bass fit him perfectly.
Right.
The Hofner bass.
But I think, didn't he get hold of that bass 2.0? The first time he held it was in the Let It Be studio.
It could be.
Because John picks up that because there's a lot of drops in that particular documentary. But he says the set list was stuck on the interior, on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, it has the set list.
It hadn't been removed, and John had to point it out to George. That's the set list.
Yeah, and it had Bassman written on it too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Paul taped the list of their songs to the back of his guitar so that he would know what song to play next.
Right.
Very organized.
Here again, he's playing up into his chest. And like, we were saying with the straps up higher. Same here. Again, I measured this is this way. I measured them both, the guitars both on these pictures too. Now you see the difference in stance.
Yes, definitely.
Paul had a way of standing. He had a way of moving when he was
You're right.
playing, and it's not carried over. There's some things you can't.
And also,
im-
the one thing that hits you is when you look at the old videos of them on the stage. Paul had a tremendous charisma.
Yeah.
And once he was gone, that was it. The other one had to work 3 times as hard.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Again.
And he still can't get it right. I don't feel the same vibe. I've seen Sir Paul in concert twice. And yeah, he puts on a fantastic show. He really did. It was great. He played over 3 hours. People went crazy. They were singing Beatles songs. It was a great time, but I just didn't feel that charisma. Like, I watch Paul in these early videos, like on the Ed Sullivan Show, or when he's playing in Germany or wherever.
Oh, his eyes don't sparkle.
Yeah, you could tell he loved performing in front of people.
Oh yeah.
Performing.
Well, and just seeing a tribute band the other day,
Yeah.
you can see the audience interaction is going to interact no matter what. What we had interaction going on, and yeah, and it was different. You know what I noticed too? I'm saying here about how Paul had a way of playing. The person that was imitating Paul actually changed his, he changed his movements with the years. So yeah, it was definitely noticeable. The ladies that were with me were amazed that they hadn't, and this isn't a good example here. So we're going to get into these pictures where Paul squeezes his thighs. He puts his thighs together and his feet go out. He bends his knees in. You can see here on these. Whether or not some people have said that they thought his hips were turned. I'm not sure if that's the case so much as maybe the knees were a little more on the knock-kneed side. But he had a tendency to do this a lot. There's 3, and I'll show you some more here. Here's some more. Even during Help, he's shrunk in the Wrigley's wrapper, and his legs are together, and his knees, and then with his outwards. It's just something natural for him to do. As you
Who put a skirt on him?
Well, he obviously did. I don't think somebody dressed him.
That is photoshopped.
If it's photoshopped, I don't know what he has on underneath, but I'm not a good Photoshop person.
He did not wear a skirt.
Well,
he was wearing shorts.
He was a prankster. Who the heck knows? I don't know, Ann. But I'm looking at his legs. I'm looking at his legs, not the skirt, because he was just being a jokester. But, and he does, I'm sure he has shorts on underneath that skirt.
He never wore a skirt.
Well, anyway, his thighs are together and his knees are together. Even in the water.
That one's photoshopped too in the middle.
This one in the middle?
Yes.
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think that's just Paul likes to stand like that. That's why I'm showing you all these different pictures where I captured it.
Those are okay.
Doing these. Yeah, but it's his natural, his go-to. Even on the rocks. Again, look where his guitar is placed. This is sort of normal with golf, but as a golfer, I don't think my knees would go in so much as they would go out, but he's at least swinging like a left-hander. Here's Same thing here on the right. Now, this is the only picture I could find of Billy with his knees like that, with his legs like that, and it's technically not the same. It's an exaggeration. I think he took what Paul did and then exaggerated it to the 9th degree. Just pictures of Paul there. Okay. So you guys are aware of the freckle?
Mm-hmm. Not that
Some
I've looked
people
at it.
may not be, it's very hard to find these pictures. But there's one with Paul on the left with his freckle that he has here on his right side of his chest. This is 65 probably. This is 68. This is from Mad Day Out. No freckle. They didn't remove freckles back then. It's just not there. Different person, different body.
There's no need, really.
No, exactly. So again, here's the difference. And I use this picture of Billy here on the right in these next couple ones because it's hard to find him in a bathing suit other than this until he's older, and that wouldn't have been a comparison. But again, the freckle is not there. So let's see what the next one is. There again, here's another one. And I was surprised I was able to find, this is a newer picture. I was able to find this while looking for these, but now this one, I know people, I'm looking at everything. I'm a visual. Look at his underarm. Underarm hair and the wet chest hair. They both have wet bodies.
Oh yeah, more hair.
His hair here is more. It's
More
darker,
hair, definitely.
but definitely more.
And another thing that happened after 66 is 2.0 stopped wearing a bracelet for a while.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Paul still has his bracelet on this picture.
Mm-hmm.
Now I tried to get these height-wise. You can see a little bit of Billy still being a little bit different, taller. Trying to stand them at the same angle, and I probably blew Paul up more so because it just looks that way.
I think
What?
Paul had quite big thighs and didn't he?
I think Billy did more so than Paul. He has long thigh. Because you can see the difference here. Again, this is like 68, 69 bearded Paul. Could you imagine? I just can't imagine Paul wearing that and doing that, but that's not when you look at the sleek one here. But now, the reason I popped this one in here the other day, I was looking for this, is because of the way Paul stands, legs together, popping his leg here. That's just something he normally does.
I see.
It disappeared. All right. I'm going to try and zip through some of these so we can get going here. Again, this is Paul and Jane and Billy and Jane. 2-year difference. Couple inches. Same thing here. Same there. Now here, if you look, shoulders. That's why I did that on this picture, shoulder to shoulder, here to here. But then look at the difference in shoulders on this picture. Same thing with this one. Jane's shoulder here is above. She's tucked underneath over here.
Do we know how tall Jane was?
Yeah, she was, according to the Google, she's 5'6".
That makes him about 5'9" then.
Paul,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which would be about right with a size 8 foot.
yeah.
Right.
And then that possibly makes Billy more 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot, or 6'1", but I don't think he's as good. I don't think he's as tall, and we'll see this picture with him and George Martin in a bit. I don't think he's as tall as what some people try to say he is. Okay, here's a difference in showing torso. Paul and Jane on the left sitting down. Billy and Jane on the right sitting down. You can see those inches in his torso. Now, it's the same thing with Linda. Linda's 5'9". Paul's said to be 5'11", but with Beatle boots, probably. Billy height 6'1", maybe.
Wow.
Well, you can see it in the Let It Be There documentary when he's standing next to John.
Yeah, I have a picture of that coming up. These are with Linda, and I believe that the picture on the right, she has heels on. It looks like it. Now we have the difference with Mal. Look at Paul with Mal here, and then Billy with Mal on this side. Smaller frame.
I think it's getting spooky where I am. Something's going on because I've got thunder and lightning. So.
Oh no.
We're going to try and get through these last slides because I know I took too long. We took too long up at the beginning. Again, and they were just facial ones. This is like body. Paul on the left, again, is shorter than Billy on the right with Mal. People can stop and look at these pictures.
And of course, another story with Mal. You know, that's a very strange situation, how he passed away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was murdered by the LAPD. And that's what
Yep.
it comes down to. They shot him.
Here's Paul and brother Mike. Now here's Paul and brother Mike in the studio in '64. Pretty close to the same height. Mike is taller.
Oh wow.
I don't know how this happened over here on the right. But some of these pictures, you know, and they can hide things to a certain extent, but sometimes things just pop up where it's not hidden.
He's toasting with his right hand, isn't he?
Yeah. Here's another picture with their dad, Jim. Now here's another picture of Billy with Mike. And Billy's a little taller.
Our
Same
kid.
thing with this one. What?
He calls him our kid.
Our kid. What? Now since you're from England, what is the thing with the our kid? I mean, is that he's told it's like supposed to be this term of endearment, sort of speaking about your sibling, but
it's a Liverpool term of endearment, talking about your sibling in a loving way.
But doesn't it sound strange that he's the younger brother and he's calling him our kid? I mean, I could see Paul saying that about Mike because he's young.
I think that's what the parents would have called him, you see. And I think then it would go to the brother, would say the same thing.
Oh, that's true.
Our kid in a sort of
proud
old sort of not fashioned term of.
So here's
love.
Paul on the left with next to Jim, and he's even I feel like he's even trying to elevate himself up a little bit in height wise.
His father's wearing glasses, so maybe Paul's eyesight wasn't as good.
Yeah, there he is wearing glasses. Billy on the right, look at the difference then. Paul on the left, his eyes are pretty much close to the same height as Jim.
Yeah.
Billy over here is way taller than matching these eyes up. Same thing here now. If we have George saying he's 5'11", the same height as Paul with Carl Perkins, and then we have Billy with Carl Perkins, and Billy's in a different angle, which if he twisted his body back and they were side by side, they'd be the same height. Paul with a puppy, George, or Billy with a puppy. Poor Martha. Okay, so Lorraine, this is the picture you sent me this morning, right?
This is the cut on the left. The cut is like it's
a square.
It's like a left-hand cut, like it's been cut on there.
Yeah. This looks like what somebody's photoshopping these. Somehow the pixels are odd. You can really see it on this picture where his crinkles, where it's like they superimposed crinkles onto his face. But when you blow it up, you can see the Photoshop.
The crinkles seem to come and go though, don't they?
Yeah, they do in his pictures.
And I think Paul had them.
Yeah, Paul did have them. So here's some pictures that I received from someone else too. Linda, who was going to be with us, she was more of an expert here on the latex mask type thing.
Do you think he wears a mask?
I can't imagine, but a lot of people do believe that.
I don't think he wears a mask.
This picture here was one that a lot of people think is the latex. This is the rippling.
No.
I think it's just, it's hard to say unless he has that much extra fluid put into his face, like a Botox type, I don't know, his fillers. Again, this picture here from Pipes of Peace is a little odd when you look here, the exaggerating of the crinkles on that other picture, and then
but he's made to look old in some of the shots.
Yeah, but this one he's made, he looks more like he's supposed to be. Looks more like Paul if he was older, and this one he looks like Billy if he was older. It's the same person playing two parts. It's just a very odd thing. Again, this was his ear.
And of course, Mull of Kintyre and Pipes of Peace are all very Scottish, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
This was a picture from someone. Now here were the boots, so people can see when we're saying that maybe that gave them a couple inches.
Definitely.
Yeah, I wonder how they got used to
Quite
standing
narrow.
in heels.
God, painful.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, they were younger then, but you know,
O's
all
got
wore
quite
heels.
I'm sorry?
2.0's got big feet.
Yes, he does. Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
But 2.0 wasn't wearing Beatle boots, so
He's got quite wide feet though.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, now we're here with differences in height comparisons here. Paul and John. Paul's always a little bit taller. Here's a spliced in picture. They didn't stand next to each other on the stage. First time that they're playing together in front of people, so to speak. It's the crew. But look at this. Big person, big shoulders, big torso. Now here's the Get Back.
And that, I mean, Paul must have endorsed that. He's looked at that documentary and allowed it to be shown.
Allowed it to be hit. And now look at here with him and George Martin. This is George and George Martin. And George and Paul are the same height. Now here's
Mm.
Billy over here with George Martin. Now he's off to the side, so maybe he's thinking, you know, I don't know what, but the pictures there, they're quick pictures. But for people like myself and a few others, we were like, as soon as we watched this, we were like, okay, here, what are we looking at? Here's an example too. Somebody had done this picture of the guitars and them holding them. Again, the difference from Paul and George, up here, PID. Paul and John, and then Billy and John. I mean, you can't, sort of hard to argue with this.
Well, I think you don't want to believe it because you don't.
Yeah.
It could possibly happen.
Cognitive dissonance.
And nothing against what's happened, because I'm sure that there would have been a lot of.
Oh,
Yeah,
they were under
but
the pressure of
a lot of
having to.
Of girls, if the truth came out in '66.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like rip the Band-Aid. When are they going to rip the Band-Aid off? Here's one that I thought was fascinating too. Again, Paul has a shorter torso. He's stretching out, maximum stretching. Billy's not maximum stretching. He's just gradually pointing upward.
That's at St Pancras Gardens, I think, in London, that one on the right.
The one on the right, again, I think this is Mad's Day Out again. We're going to get into some of those pictures. Where's this one? Why is this taken? So, again, Paul and John on the right. Now, this is from Sergeant Pepper, Brian's house, where they had the celebration.
Oh, I know. Yeah, the party.
So what's really was odd about this, and this really shows the height. Here's Paul up here. These guys are over here, and you can see these are all they're all the same people in the same, in the same picture from Pepper. Except for he shaved his mustache. So he did shave his mustache. This is in August of '67. So that mustache didn't stay on very long. But here's the height difference. And then when you look at this next picture, I wanted to see this. The hearth is elevated. This is one of the few pictures where I found him putting his knees like this, but he had to do that to lower himself.
Mm.
So they were standing in this picture here. They're standing on that hearth that's a little bit higher than where Billy was standing, off to the left. You can see the candlestick off to the left. He was standing down low, little lower than them, giving him that little bit of extra. Again, they're on the hearth and he's not. Anne, are you still there?
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the pictures, Sam.
All right. I just wanted to make sure you didn't fly away. Since I can't see you.
anywhere.
No, I can't see you. Again, difference in the heights of the face, long versus wide. Way Paul plays. Again, Paul playing legs together, crouching a lot of times. This is a cute one here for George too. And like I said, I just saw that tribute band, and I said to the girls, watch, George he's going to do some hop skipping. And they were like, oh my gosh, I never noticed this stuff before. So
Yeah, the Fab Four, they do an excellent job
they did do an excellent job.
of portraying them. And they studied the Beatles and how they moved and how they sang, and they really did their homework.
Yeah.
They got it down pat. I mean, John, he's perfect as John, looks like him, acts like him. You know, George
Yeah.
is the same way, and Paul was the same way, and Ringo.
Yeah.
They're a great concert, great tribute band.
It was a great concert. And I have videos of them on my Facebook page. Again, now this one I was going back to talking about the way Paul sits. Legs together, crossing of the legs. Legs together, crossing of the legs. I found he does occasionally do, the knee on the ankle, but not often. Still more crisscrossing. And then here we have Billy and Sergeant Pepper. Not black socks, but we are in psychedelic air. It's just not how Paul sits.
No.
At least not when there's cameras around. And maybe we can put it that way. Here we're going. I'm looking at the top again, the torso. The length from here to here and the difference from the length here. Billy's long. Again, he's longer. Now we're going into, we were saying about carrying the hands in the right-handed aspect. This is maybe Billy's first picture as Paul.
His debut.
His debut picture. And coming back from Kenya, I can imagine he probably lost weight. I don't know that, or he beefed up because he's a bigger person in 68 than he looks here. But then maybe, I don't know. Again, left hand, right hand. Whoops, did I skip something? Left hand, right hand. It's a picture I didn't crop. Okay. Lorraine, was it you that gave me this the other day? The Macarena.
Looking comfortable with his daughter and feeling comfortable right-handed.
Yeah, and I am a right-handed person, and I cannot take a bottle and pour left-handed. And do, like you're saying, he's very comfortable with these pictures. This was a YouTube video.
Yeah, but I think he's now saying he's more or less ambidextrous now, isn't he?
Well, that's a good way of covering that, isn't it? Because early on in the books, we were talking about reading things, and Ann and I, we have that accounting of everything. Paul did things backwards, being left-handed, because he wasn't ambidextrous.
That's
So
Paul
go ahead.
He said that he can't do anything with his right hand. He's totally left-handed all the way.
Yeah. Yet every single picture, every single movement through this video, he's doing everything right-handed, reaching right-handed, picking up right-handed, pouring right-handed.
But I think there's only a minimum amount of people really now looking at this, aren't they? Really. I
Well,
mean,
there is, but that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. And I think he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. Maybe.
No, I don't think he's bothered now. He's of an age where he's made his money and
Yep.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I believe this was last year, Christmas, if I remember right. So I came back to Mad Day Out. Again, this was such a strange day for pictures. I'm thinking this was in 68. Anybody know for sure? I don't know for sure.
68.
68.
I think that was the St Pancras Gardens, wasn't it?
Yes.
Gardens at St Pancras, and I think they took the pictures, didn't they, in the flowers?
Yes. So is this what they really wanted to do? I have these pictures of this mad day is just a little crazy.
Yeah,
But
well, they're trying to copy, aren't they, the jumping picture? The jumping picture that was taken by Fiona Adams.
This one?
No, you know the jumping picture when they were at the Fab Four?
Oh, yes. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. Yes.
Yeah. And
Okay.
Fiona's now gone, but I knew her personally. She took the photographs and she told them, you know, you can't just stand there, you got to do something, so jump.
Okay.
They sure did do
And
some
so
things, didn't they?
They're trying to recreate that movement.
There's movement on this picture, but it just seems funny that it's Paul being either saved or pushed.
Yeah, but then you've got Ringo pulling George back, haven't you? So
Well, Ringo would save George.
I think they're just larking around because that's what they were
Yeah.
famous for, weren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, then we get into some of these that are just
It's very strange. Why would you take your top off though? It
not sure.
Seems a bit messy.
Yeah.
And does this look like what would 68? He would have been 26. I don't know. It doesn't look like a 26-year-old to me.
No, it doesn't. Quite an ironic picture though with John lying there.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
then here we go into these with Billy here in the chains.
Yeah, I suppose they're trying to be artistic, creative. Which is typical really of bands, isn't it? They've got a
Yeah,
they're
but
artistic, creative.
if you
style.
look at it as Paul being the sacrifice, here's the picture.
Oh goodness, I suppose if you've got John lying on the floor, yes, I see what you mean. Like a message is coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then we're back to the being in the flowers.
Yeah, that's St Pancras.
It's very pretty. Those flowers are very pretty. Again, you can see Billy's height. Now, this one popped up the other day, and I had never noticed this before. This guy that's supposedly back here looks like Paul, and this guy has the hand over Paul's head. So we're getting back into that messaging. And this picture and the other one that I saw makes it really look like that studio was a lot smaller than what it looks like when you're watching the video. They look very crammed in there. So here we're getting down to the last couple. Here we Ann and I talked about these in our second book, Shadow Dancing, the two Pauls in Yellow Submarine. Why are there two Pauls?
Oh, that's a good point.
Why are there two faces? Beatle cartoon Two-Face.
And that was released before Paul's alleged death,
Yeah.
that cartoon.
So then we're come to the picture here where the car is driving into his head. Car is driving.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they was dropping all sorts of things then in that era, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, just too many to mention, really.
Oh, hundreds. But these were visual since we were doing the video here, the visual, and this car's driving into the head of the oldies, a collection of Beatle oldies. The collection of Beatle oldies came out in the when we're looking at the time frame of Paul being replaced, the end of 66. They normally would have had an album come out, and they didn't. So they're oldies. How are the Beatles having an oldies when they're only been out there in the United States for 2 years? But and then here over on the right is Sgt. Pepper, Strawberry Fields, and there's a car running through in the background right through his head.
Isn't it I Am the Walrus?
Or I Am the Walrus. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But there is a scene in Strawberry Fields Forever with the same thing.
Yeah, there is a picture of a car going through the head. I probably pulled the wrong one.
No, well, there's two of them, so
Yeah.
you're fine.
Again there, now look at Paul sitting down. He wasn't having a good day that day. Don't know what was going on, but something was. From Paperback Writer and Rain, the shootings, the filmings. Here we go to the occultic, what all the artists are now doing. The 6/6. Billy has his bracelet on, and it's not Paul's bracelet, it's another bracelet, but it's on his right side. Paul wore his watch on that side. Somebody did some good sketches. These last couple were album cover. Sgt. Pepper. A lot of people talk about the difference in this meaning of the 1, 1, 1, 10. You know, is it 11, 1? Is it 1, 11? Or what am I saying? 11, 9, 11?
119.
119 or 911.
He
die. But you also have to make it so that it's representative of a word. So whether it's 9/11 or 11/9, we think it's 11/9. It had to fit the word too at the same time.
Oh, you mean 9th of November?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because in the Scruff's book, she maintains that she sees Paul in October
Yeah.
of 66 in the nightclub. And it must have been late October because she says it was getting dark at 5 o'clock. So,
yeah, we believe that.
Replacement wouldn't be until 9th of November, around November.
Yep.
Okay, so that fits better
Hmm.
with the November date than the September date.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since he was at the Melody Makers on September 13th.
Right.
Right. Egypt Station, I just threw this in here because it's got a lot of esoteric, occult, whatever symbolism on this album cover. Another album cover here with you put up the mirror. Paul spells out Bill. It's just these odd, I mean, it's just never ending, you know. The last album from last year, McCartney 3, but he used a die to represent the three die. Number 3 on a die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Three are dead. Paul, John, and George. It's plain as the nose on your face, right?
It is.
Oh my goodness. But anything you want to close out with, Lorraine? Any thoughts? And
Well, he's 86, 85, and he may live for another 10 years. But it would be nice if something came to light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, he'll be loved, and when he's gone, I mean, people adore him. He's not going to.
Yeah, and I don't know if
He's not going to lose
does
the
he.
love.
Do you think that he feels that by coming out with the truth, he'd be bashed so badly that?
I think he's concerned about his children. If it is true, I would be. But if I was him, and if it was true, and I didn't have long to go, and I do strongly believe that there is a spirit world, I would want to
Make amends.
make it come to light. That's a massive thing to
To go to the other side with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The karma that's going to come around is going to be immense for people like us that believe in that.
I feel for him because of that. I really do. I really, really feel for him. The money's not worth it.
No, not living with a lie for over 56 years. And that's a terrible burden to put on anybody.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're at that 56-year mark here this next week.
Okay.
yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel that he shouldn't be afraid to make it known if it's true. And he's not going to be loved any less. He'll probably be loved
you're
more.
right.
He'll probably be loved more for carry that weight, boy.
Yeah, a long time.
A long time.
Well, I just hope that if the truth ever comes out, that we can give Paul his due credit.
That is the thing that really does. So I mean, a lot of people would say, "Oh, why do you take an interest? Why do you read the books? Why do you look and search?" And you think, well, there's somebody that, if it's true, there is somebody that has been forgotten as a person, as a human soul,
Right.
with a spirit, because we're not artificial intelligence. We're not robots. We have a soul and a spirit, and we are very unique as people. So if someone's been replaced, the other person really has been erased in a way. Their soul and spirit has been erased, if you look at it from that angle.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it. Yeah, he's been forgotten and he's been lost in history, and he doesn't deserve that. He revolutionized bass playing. The Beatles did so much in those first 3 years and gave so much to us that he needs to be remembered for his contribution to music, just like 2.0.
Yeah.
He could be recognized for his contributions to music. But I think Paul needs his place. He shouldn't be forgotten. He wrote Yesterday, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wrote a lot.
But well, yeah, and Yesterday's in the Guinness Book of World Records. So that's how I feel about it. I just don't want him to be forgotten in history when he gave so much, and he was so talented, and he was a genius, an amazing person. When you look back at those videos and you watch him in those interviews, he was such a light to people. He had a great sense of humor, and just
you can see the difference in the personalities too, and I think that needs to be noted, that some of the things that people attribute to him that they don't like is not really for Paul, because it was carried on by the other person.
right.
It's
You know, some of
I'm
the
trying
things
to
that
watch my
Billy-
words.
And some of the things that Billy has done in his name, I don't think is very good either. But that's my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
well,
ladies,
he has to look at himself in the mirror every day. That's the thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So-
it's interesting to see what might be in his head. But yeah, so we have been on here. Charlie Freak, if you're watching this,
Hello.
we're rivaling you. Yeah, I didn't mean for this to go on that long. I was having some trouble in the beginning, and then a lot of the front pictures were a little bit long, but yeah, especially when the end of the videos and the end pictures are more dramatically noting stuff. But anyway, we're going to sign off. If you haven't already liked this video, please like it so it pops up in the algorithms, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Shadow of a Bassman. And if anybody is wanting to purchase any of the books, or 2 books that are out already, they're on shadowofabassman.com. Can link over to the books, over to the YouTube. And that's
And this
it.
is for entertainment purposes only.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure it is.
No copyright intended.
No copyright intended on any pictures that I might have used that were copyrighted, because they're out there in the internet.
And it's for entertainment purposes only.
And it's for entertainment purposes only. And as Paul would say, once it's out there, it's okay to nick it. So we did. Anyway, we'll sign off. It was nice having you on, Lorraine.
Thank you very much for joining us, Lorraine. It was
Okay.
a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank
Well,
you.
we'll have to do it again.
We'll do it again for sure. We need to have more guests where we're not doing all these pictures. We'll just talk.
I need to read the books again. I'm afraid my memory is there's stuff in there.
We need to read the books again too.
It's true.
We're on to the next and the next, and it's like, oh, those were 2 years ago. What did we say? I don't know. Same with these other books, these piles that I have on my table. All right, ladies, we'll talk later.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.